Audio is up. Intro is out. Camera is up. There we go. We're on a little bit of loop here. Let me turn this down. Alrighty then. Okay, well everybody, I am Max and welcome to another simulating live stream with Max's models. We have Steve on the line. Steve, we got a voice check with you.
Voice check, voice check, voice check.
And we can check the comment section, make sure everybody's hearing you. And Ken will be with us shortly. He's still eating dinner. So we have a whole bunch of cool things to go over tonight, plus wherever the night may take us, which around here, well, that could be the land of Oz. So, I guess the thing we can start off, audio low. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. Alrighty, let me go over here and I will turn this up. And let's do another voice check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And looks like they can hear us now. Okay, everybody, welcome aboard. And a lot going on here in the spray booth and in the Tarbus and all the other good stuff. And you will notice behind my shoulder right here, I have the Disney Moonliner, Marsliner. Seems to go by a couple of different names depending on who's reboxing it. And it is a Glencoe repop of the original old kit. And it was an absolute nightmare. So Steve and I have been talking about this. In fact, let me show you a picture of Steve's beautiful build of the Moonliner. Oh, here comes Ken. Here we go. Okay, merge. Hey, Ken, you on board?
I am.
All right. I'd asked for voice check, but I can already tell you're louder than Steve, and they can hear him. Okay, so the Moonliner. I put it in Pan Am colors. There's a little bit of a story behind that, which basically boils down to bad decals. They just gone bad over time. They completely disintegrated. Which, if you've been doing your homework assignments and watching my videos, you've already seen that. So, fortunately, Nicholas had sent me some aftermarket decals for the 2001 Orion Cruiser. So I pilfered some of those, and I decided to go with Pan Am. I did have some TWA markings. I'll show you those in a bit. It came with TWA markings, but they're black. The ones in the kit, as I mentioned, disintegrated. Oh, excuse me, the Fastway airline markings. But at first I wanted to put a, well, you know what? Let's just take a quick look at some of the alternatives, and then we'll get into it. Oops, there we go. So, got the blank Moonliner, and I started off with some old Eastern Airlines decals that I had for a much larger, that big 148 scale DC-3. And although I liked the way they looked, they were just simply too big. They just dominated the whole thing, and it just didn't look right. If they'd been about 3/4 that size, I might have stayed with them. Obviously, the windows are all way too big. But I actually did consider blasting the whole thing in silver and using the Great Silver Fleet decals, but the scale was just a little bit too far off. Given as old as those decals were, that's an old monogram kit, I was actually surprised I didn't have more trouble with them. I actually had more trouble with some of the newer decals. I had some Western Airlines decals that would have looked good, but they weren't that old, and they didn't disintegrate, but they kept breaking. And that they got to be a little too problematic. So next time if I decide to use those, I'll put some restore fluid on them. So I probably should have done that with all these decals, but I hear somebody in the background. Anyway, so
Sorry, I'm gonna shut the door.
Yeah, good idea. The next one. Now this was some old TWA 747 decals. And it just didn't really work. Something about it just, I could have cut out just the TWA and made it like the other one, but I was using some of the window decals and everything. There was just something about it just didn't I forgot to take a photo when I had the whole stripe on there, but it just didn't quite work. You know, everything in the actual kit was horizontal, like bands that went around it, which looked really good. But going linear with it, with the I don't know, it just somehow the logo didn't orient and everything. I had one horizontal, one vertical. I played it with a couple of different ways, and yeah, I wasn't feeling the love. But the Pan Am, something about it. Now, one of the Pan Am logos is horizontal, one's vertical, so depending on which way you turn it. Like here you can see right here, I've got a Pan Am logo that's horizontal, and then if you want to look at it the other way, I got one that's vertical. And since none of the decals, all these stripes and stuff came from other kits, and and I got the door on it, the boarding door, and it wasn't until after we were done and I started looking at this, is all gloss coated and hardened now, and it wasn't until after I was done that I realized that the little Pan Am logos flipped around the wrong way. But I put the Pan Am logo, and I put the name of the ship and everything, and because a lot of times when you board an aircraft, they'll have the name right there by the door and everything. And of course, I used a couple of Apollo decals because it's still, you know, America. You know, got to wave the flag. And Pan Am was a flag carrier, so they were actually required to have a U.S. flag on the tail. So I figured let's go full throttle NASA with it. But it's going to look good up on the shelf. But the problem also, that covers up some of the seam issues. But the real problem that I had with this thing, and Steve, I'm going to show yours here in a bit. In fact, let me go find it.
I find it kind of ironic that both of those airlines that you have, decals that you have on there, neither one of them still exists.
I know, believe me, that wasn't lost on me in the slightest.
It's a tribute, Ken.
Yeah.
So what could have been?
Okay, okay, Steve, you sent me a picture of your build. I know I've got it here somewhere. So, okay, let's. Huh. So, if not, I can just grab it real quick. I could have sworn that I took a. Well, let me just go get it. And I know I must have. I was kind of rushing to get all this done here. There's yours. Okay. This is Steve's build. He and I had very different experiences on the. Okay, something ain't right there. Let's try that again. No, I'm highlighting it. Open. Oh, I gotta hit OK. Okay. Okay, your picture, it should... Steve, you sent me a stealth photo.
Ken, would you like to step in and fix this, Ken?
I'm sitting here looking at your... Okay, let me remove that. Yes, okay. Plus, image. I go browse. Now I'm looking at it. 123_1 JPEG. Okay, this is your picture of, which is, by the way, beautiful job. Okay, and let's make fit to screen, center to screen. What in the holy heck is going on here? There's just no picture. It's not.
Oh.
Weird. Okay. I'm not done yet. I have an idea, which is always a dangerous thing. When you hear me say that, it's time to start, getting the helmet out of the closet. Okay.
A dangerous thing I know.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm going to save as. I'm going to save it as a regular JPEG. Put it in L150. Save. Yours is a JPEG. There may be some reason it can't see that. Let's see if this works. I had
Yes,
never.
Chris, we are
Okay.
supposed to see a picture, but we are having technical difficulties.
This is. You know what? That brings up okay. Let's see if this one works.
Called an ID10T.
There we
error.
go. There was something about the JPEG it couldn't recognize, and this is Steve's Moonliner build, and of course it's just beautiful. And he's got everything out the door and everything's out of the windows. Now, I actually covered up most of my windows and then colored them in with a black paint marker. Now, let me explain why I ran into trouble. That seam is still pretty visible, but I probably should have put the stripe there, but then that would have been out of alignment. But I mean, when you look at it this way, even from a distance, you don't see it. It's gonna look fine, you know, up on the shelf, which is where it's gonna go. It's gonna go in the. This is actually gonna go in the house, up on the rocket thing. So it's gonna look fine like that, you know, at some small distance. So.
Well, I know you said you had a lot of problems and you showed the videos
Yes.
all week long.
I have pictures, but I don't think you guys are going to need them. So yours is the way I wanted mine to look when it was done. So here's the dealio on that. And you and I were talking about this. I think that mine, which is a Glencoe release, and I'm not blaming Glencoe. I don't think it's had anything to do with the fact that it's a Glencoe.
No, mine was a Glencoe also.
Yeah, I think because the alignment pins didn't line up. When you put all the alignment pins together, the bottom and the top were out of alignment, and I wound up shaving them off and having to hand fit everything. I believe what happened was that the thing was, like you said, probably stored in an attic somewhere, and as we all know, also no two batches of styrene are identical. And I believe what might have happened was the thing just sort of warped, and you had what you might call dissimilar shrinkage. And you know, on a model, it doesn't take much. I mean, a millimeter is all it takes, even less. And everything's out of alignment. And I was like, I can't believe that this stuff is this much out of alignment. And I'd line up the pins and I'd go, two of them will fit, but the third one doesn't. If I fit that one doesn't fit. And none of them had the thing aligned correctly. And I was thinking, maybe I need to switch the sections around, you know, but I was like, no, that doesn't make any difference. So whatever happened, it caused the thing basically to be warped. But one reason I know it was warped was that these landing gear legs come in halves. The main trunnions come in halves to glue together. And there were, I had to putty them up because there were these like elongated teardrop gaps in them. And it's like this, even for something made in 1955, this is awfully out of whack.
Yours had to be warped after it was shot.
Or something went wrong during the shooting,
because I didn't have any of those problems in mine. I put the body sections together. If they had a seam, I puttied the seam, sanded it, primed it. It was gone. The landing legs, I put them together. Same thing. I didn't have a problem.
Yeah, and I was not expecting to have all these problems. I think a lot of this may have had to do with, well, you know, we're already talking about there's just all kinds of different things. The nose cap didn't fit worth a flip, and all the things that were wrong with it tell me that it either came out of the machine bad, maybe it didn't cool properly, or it was stored someplace where weirdness happened to it after the.
I'm thinking more the second than the first.
That was more of a storage issue.
Yeah. I'm thinking that was really probably what happened, where it was stored someplace where it got really hot, like an attic.
Yeah.
And then really cold in the winter, and really hot and really cold, and who knows how long it was there, because it came from an estate sale.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was probably just warped.
Yeah, that makes about as much sense as anything else. And somewhere buried in here, I have some pictures of the assembly when I put the wheels together, and it was I was like, dear Lord, not the wheels, I mean the landing gear struts. And I'm kind of like, dear Lord, these parts don't even look, what is going on here? And, well, those photos are buried back in here somewhere. I guess it doesn't matter. Point is, we all know the drill. So it happens, and it's one of those things that it made it a challenge. I didn't get the kit that I just sent you an email on my Mars liner build. Okay, I'll take a look at that. And I hope for most folks that they have a better experience than I did. And I love the kit. I'd love to get another one and just do it out of the box. But I got to be honest with you, I would love to have, from the Nationals no less. I would love to have about a dozen of these things. Oh, I love that. He put it in military markings. U.S. Mars for, okay, let me copy this image real quick. You guys are going to love this. This is exactly, falls right in the category of make it what you want it to be. This is exactly the kind of thing that I love doing with these things. Edit, paste, crop, file, save as, JPEG. We'll just call it 1. I'm going to put that in L50, L150. This is our 150th live stream, guys. Can you believe that? All right, guys. Let me sort all the clicks. All right, Brian. Let me sign out. Can't have too much going on this computer. We risk bombing out. Let me put this picture up here. And this is Brian's image. 150, and there it is. Transform, fit to screen. There we go. There's Brian's, and I love that. If I had a dozen of these things, I would I just sit around putting them in different logos and everything because it really is a cool vehicle. I like, and I would do some of them military, some of them civilian, that kind of thing. But maybe do one as a racer. Hey, Barley. Just it's one of those things. I would just factory production line all the body shells, and then just get them all primed up and ready to go, and just
that's real nice.
Huh?
That's real nice.
What?
The Moonliner picture.
What about it?
It's nice. It's real nice.
Oh yeah, it is. And but that's how I would just do every one of them different, because the beauty of building a fictitious vehicle like this is that there are no rules. I mean, it's one thing when you're doing something from a TV show and you're trying to make it like the Enterprise from Star Trek, but sometimes it's one of the things I have a couple of leftover starships. I didn't build them. A family friend built them, left it on my mom's house. They're the two little Enterprise, and it was that trio set you could get. And I've always been wondering what to do with them because I already have them up on the shelf in the pilot room done. I don't really need it. And they're just painted blank gray with a few touches. It just dawned on me just now that those would be the perfect things to wash up and, put one in Southeast Asia camo, one in Air Force Air Superiority gray, one in, RAF markings or something, And
that's not 71 black.
I might just do that. I mean, why not? I mean, but this vehicle, because it doesn't exist in the real world, you can do anything you want with it. Nobody can go, well, that's wrong. What do you mean that's wrong? The thing doesn't even exist. So it would be fun, and if anybody happens to have like a dozen of these things laying around. But it's just cool. One of the things when I did this space station, I only wanted to do this because I had the other one. Brilliant, Max. I just knocked the antenna off the top trying to get it off the shelf. Shoot. OBS Studio disconnected, reconnecting. Reconnection successful. We're going to have one of those nights, guys. Are we still here?
Yep.
That said it disconnected and reconnected. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, we're on the phone. Of course I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, no, it didn't break off. It looks like it just Well, I get to anyway. I went to the trouble of lacing all the wires and everything, and that's all easy line, and a little bit of a challenge. But I didn't want to put a lot of effort into it. I wanted to build it like I would when I was a kid because I'm just going to stick it up here on the shelf, and I'll just put that back here with this little background set dressing. Oh, those two go together rather nicely. And I have the other one hanging up in the garage. And of course, then what went through my mind was I was thinking, because like you do, because I don't have enough projects, I could get another one of each and then really just, pardon the pun, max them out. I mean, light them, black interiors, sanded smooth, no seam lines, heavy, enamel paint on the outside to give it that glassy, smooth finish, all the metal wires in place, lights in it, and all that other stuff. And just put them side by side. This is what the 6-year-old Max did, and this is what the 60-year-old Max does. But of course,
and the 6-year-old Max will probably look better.
You never know.
What would be cool is if somebody made a model of the space station from 2001.
Yeah, and that's my understanding. Pretty complicated kit too, because half of it was still under construction. But anyway, the idea just being that sometimes you just want to do a kit real simple, have a little fun. Sometimes you want to go all the way out with it. I don't normally like kits because they take eventually they start having wiring problems or something. Although I do have some light kits that were sent to me, especially for the NX01, and I will be lighting that one when I get around to it. But I always think about and this is a danger of being a model builder, is that you get all these great ideas and you genuinely want to do them, but you just you overload yourself because you want to do more than there are hours of the day to do. But the other kit that came with got about the same time was the space plane, and this was just something that I happened to see at Ian's. It wasn't expensive, and I'd never seen it before. And it was something they made up, probably based on some NASA thing. And I wanted to do a callback to like the old Northwest, because it's called Orient Express. And I was like, well, how about Northwest Orient? And I had some Northwest Orient decals. And of course, everything was going fine until the west part folded in on itself. And then you're like, crap, you're back in the water with the decal trying to get it to unstick. And of course, it winds up ripping in half. Like, well, it's gone from Northwest Orient to now North Orient.
But who made that kit?
Oh man, I want to say Monogram. I actually had the box out. I used the box to start sticking my extra decals in. Now this was literally a 10-part kit that, as you can tell, I didn't waste a lot of time. It was one of those things that just slap it together, and it sat there in pure white forever. And it doesn't have to be painted. The decals, it comes with the decals for the windows and everything. And these are these decals are rearranged from the way they originally supposed to go on the model. But again, fantasy aircraft, do it what you want to do, make it what you want it to look like, because it's your model and you do it the heck ever you want with it. But the kit itself, there's nothing wrong. It doesn't have any landing gear or anything. It's strictly a wheels up on this, comes with the stand. But and it gives you the name of the Spirit of New York is the name of it, and that's one of those things that that'll go back in the Tarbus up on the shelf and just kind of hide in the background, because my guess is they probably didn't sell that well because it's the only one I've ever seen. It's a fictitious aircraft, so there's not people dying to build it, and but I just thought it was kind of cool. And at the time I was grabbing everything space station or space plane. It was kind of, might park that in the background, on a video or something, just as set dressing. But this is, I think, something that they made up because they were just like running on fumes. Nothing new to make, so hey, here's a picture in a magazine, let's do that, or a comic book or something. But my guess is it probably didn't sell very well, there's nothing wrong with it as a kit. It's just a totally fictitious airplane. And that, of course, is, when you have anything you make a model of that doesn't have a built-in following, you are really rolling the dice on sales, which is why, the movie tie-ins are such a big deal. And But a lot of us have, Moonliner ideas because the love for the Moonliner because Disney and the alternate ones that I had. Of course, I did the Pan Am, but I had played with the Eastern decals. Like I say, they were too big. The TWA just didn't work out right, and the I'm not, the nice thing about this is that airliner decals will, for the most part, work on it because they're still a long fuselage. So I like the more retro stuff, but ironically, Ken, reference what you said. The one thing the space plane had going for it was that it was a fictitious airline that doesn't exist, but at least it's not one that went away. So, although people have a thing for restarting airlines with old names.
I looked up the Space Odyssey 2001 space station.
Mm-hmm.
It appears it only comes in paper and a paper kit form.
Oh, I thought I saw a kit of it. All right. Again, probably a kit that wouldn't have, it'd be pretty complicated and probably wouldn't have a lot of sales. It's just a little too out there. It's like when they make these models of the satellites and everything, which I think are cool. It's great. I've got one or two on the shelf that I'm looking forward to building, but there just aren't that many people that want to build a model of a satellite. People want to build the stuff they see.
Somebody in Lithuania made a 3D printed version of it.
Okay.
The 2001 Space Odyssey space station. They want $2,100 for it and $242 in shipping.
I don't doubt it. I told you it's complicated. You look, Ken. If I wanted to make a model of the 2001 space station, the way it appeared in the movie, I would just get stock styrene, find something I could warm it and bend it around to get the turn right, get those construction I-beam styrene parts, and just start building it out of scratch. Probably start off, see if I could find a wire ring that's the right size as a base, and go from there. And then once you have the framing done in place, and blasted, and I think it was red, then you could just put stock panel styrene on the side of it to make the walls. It wouldn't be that. I got to be careful how to say this. I don't want to imply that it's an easy thing to make, but given it doesn't have any super complex curves on it like the fuselage of a jet or something, so it would be completely doable. Let me put it that way. Detailing it, of course, is where you run into model. They had a 3D printed one at Modelpalooza. Okay, I probably saw it and am brain farting on it. Thanks, Barry. I maybe that's why I thought there was a kit of one out there. You see, that brings up a slightly interesting point. I was showing my wife on YouTube a couple of movie trailers, and she pointed out, those are AI. Those aren't real movie trailers. And I consider myself a little bit on the savvy side where video production's concerned. And apparently, what they did was they took some existing trailers and stuff and used a little AI and since they can mimic voices now, and they made a reasonably convincing commercial. And I was like, why would anybody go to the trouble of making a fake commercial for a movie that's already got a real commercial out there? But they do. Okay, fine. I can see make it for something that doesn't exist, totally creative, but so the same thing happens. I see these models and I think, oh, there's a kit of that out there, failing to realize there's a good chance a lot of this stuff might be 3D printed or scratch made for that matter, which I guess technically 3D printing is scratch built, but it's not what we think of. Craig, I saw a thing with a 1-to-1 B-36 bomber. I mean, the flight deck is cool, but I think that borders on a form of insanity. There's a couple of guys down, I think, Australia that were building a 1-to-1 scale Messerschmitt 109, far more attainable. They basically had the plans for the ME-109 that they were copying, but they're making it out of wood instead of aluminum. And last I saw, they had the fuselage mostly done. I don't know if it ever proceeded beyond that or not. A lot of great woodwork. I mean, it looked authentic. I think maybe as a movie prop, and who knows, it might fly. But there's a guy that built a 1-to-1 Spitfire that flies. He flies it at air shows. It's got a car engine in it. And I watched a rather lengthy video of him doing the walk around. It took 100,000 man hours to build a Spitfire the way Supermarine did it. That was one of the problems with the airplane. They were very labor intensive and expensive, whereas the 109 was extremely cheap and easy to make. But and of course, it doesn't quite have Spitfire performance. I think he's got a Corvette engine or something in there. But it just staggers the imagination that somebody could build a full-size fly. This is one of the 3/4 scale jobs. This is a full-size flying Spitfire. Now, I'm sure he used modern materials and did not do everything that Supermarine did, probably because he didn't have to. But it doesn't matter. It's still, the undertaking is just amazing. There have been a couple of full-size ME-262s done, but they were done by a company. Small company, but I think they built 3 of them, a 2-seater and a couple of single-seaters. And in fact, I think I think the museum up in the Northwest, I think they're flying ME-262, the Paul Allen collection. I believe that's one of those airplanes. So, all of a sudden I don't feel so brave, scratch building a space station.
There's other people doing that.
Yeah. So I just love getting these old kits like this and just dolling them up with some different decals and making them look, just let your imagination run wild and have some fun with it. As Sheldon Cooper said, what's life without a little whimsy? Of course, build enough of these things, and then you got to use them to make a movie. So I did this video recently on the aircraft that were used in the Korean War. I've been on a bit of a Korean War kick lately, and my dad served in Alaska during the Korean conflict, and I left 2 of them out. My brother pointed out that, and I didn't realize some of these aircraft actually saw action during the Korean War. The RB-36 and the RB-45. And the RB-36 did not see actual shooty bang bang in Korean War. What it did was it flew over Manchuria and China on spy missions and recon missions to support the conflict, see what was going on. But you got to remember, this thing, that's about as close as combat as these things got, because it was primarily intended as a nuclear bomber, but the reconnaissance assets were used, and that's a very expensive and vulnerable piece of hardware to put up in bad guy land without any fighter escort. So I apologies for missing that one. And the other one, and Ken, this is what your dad showed us a picture of when he was out of, was it Diego Garcia or Guam or somewhere? He said he had that jet when he was in the Air Force. That's the RB-45C Tornado and the recon version. They did fly, not only did they fly reconnaissance missions in the Korean War, at least one of them was shot down. And because you have to go down that rabbit hole. I found out not only was it shot down, but at least one of the crew members got out alive, maybe 2 of them, and was never given back at the end of the war. The Russians held on to him, and they actually in 91 or 92 found some transcripts of his interrogation. So you flew a reconnaissance aircraft and got shot down and got grabbed by the enemy, you went into that black hole of the espionage world to never be seen again. So you really have to give kudos to the people who flew those missions, because that was exceedingly dangerous. And it got so bad for the Tornadoes, they were actually sending them in with fighter escort. But they got one of them. And that was early in the war. That was in 1950, before we had jets in there that could escort them. It's probably why we started sending jet fighters with them. So I always thought of the RB-45 as an airplane that didn't see any combat because it never actually dropped bombs. But because the military is very quiet about their reconnaissance activities, so we tend to forget. If you want to build a model of an airplane that is an unsung hero, pretty much grab any reconnaissance aircraft, because they do everything they do. It's like the submarine force. They do everything they do in the dark and out of sight. And so That was two of them that I forgot to add. But I have been just of late on a Korean War kick, and I've got some of these kits and I need to build them. But what shocked me was there were so many vehicles that were in use in the Korean War that I was not even aware of. And I don't mean aware that they were there, I mean aware that they even existed. One of them is this M45. And it's just a Pershing with a 105 howitzer on it. And I don't think they sent that many over. But I'm like, yeah, this is how did I not even know this thing existed? And for those who don't know, a howitzer, the thing that makes a howitzer different than a cannon on a tank and a gun on a tank on a main combat tank, these are support vehicles. Howitzers are generally designed to fire beyond line of sight, and whereas they don't have the high velocity and the penetrating rounds the reason tanks have such long barrels on them when they're made to go tank to tank is to get high velocity to penetrate the armor on another tank or a bunker or whatever. These howitzers are good at bunker busting, but they weren't designed for tank to tank warfare. They were designed as a support vehicle, but they could shoot, right at an enemy tank. But generally speaking, when you think of howitzer, you think of an artillery piece that fires over the horizon. But that is not engraved in stone anywhere. Yeah, the
Hey Max.
uh-huh.
I'm poking through eBay, and I came across a 3D printed Saturn V 1/48 scale.
Uh-huh.
That's got to be enormous.
Yeah, I know somebody had one. They're about 5 feet tall, if I remember correctly. Almost bought it from him. And almost.
Well, this guy wants almost $1,250 for it.
Yeah, but you can get one from Dragon, I think it is, makes one for a few $100. It's very detailed, and it's not that expensive, I don't think. It's way less than that, and it's got all, you can take it apart. It's got all the internal components where you can see them.
This is a nice model. It's got some.
Well, I'm
really
sure it
interesting
is.
stuff.
For that price, it bloody well better be.
Here's an interesting one. It's a 3D printed Gemini lunar lander.
Oh yeah, they played with that idea. Never
heard of that one.
Oh, I have. I actually read it. The big Gemini. Not to get derailed here, but why not? Because that's what we do. So the Gemini program, because remember, we're trying to beat the Ruskies to the moon. By golly, got to beat those godless commies. And the idea was the Gemini program was doing so well. It was a real little sports car of a spaceship, way more capable than Mercury. And somebody got the bright idea that, hey, if we only stick one astronaut in a Gemini, we got a lot of room for stores. And we could basically put the top half of a Gemini onto the lunar module lower half and send it straight to the moon and land and beat the Russians. And then we'll send somebody later, once Apollo's perfected, to go pick him up. And if you've ever seen From the Earth to the Moon, when the guy actually proposes this, and like, no, but actually it was talked about. And
You mean he would stay on the moon until Apollo showed up to pick him up?
Have you never seen the movie with James Caan, Countdown? With James Caan and Gene, Robert Duvall? That's the mission he was on. He was supposed to, because the Russians were getting ahead of us, so he was supposed to land there. They were actually going to put the lunar module lower half with those little living quarters on it first, with no ascent module. And then he was going to go there in a Gemini, which was just what that thing is on a lower, and then land. And it's a good movie, because I don't know if NASA helped him with it. I think they may have, because everything they did it looked like it was shot at NASA headquarters, but everything they did was the kind of stuff that, NASA had actually toyed with. Oh, there were all kind. Steve and I were at the Udvar Hazy. We saw that Regalo wing triangular parachute recovery system for the Geminis that were talked about. And
at Udvar Hazy.
Yeah, at Udvar Hazy. So basically, instead of coming down on a parachute, they'd come down under a hang glider so they could fly it like an airplane. And it just turned out not to be practical, but it was, ate up too much space, was too heavy. But it was going. one of the kind of things that we're talking today, they might use a square parachute, a ram air canopy, instead of a round one if they wanted to do something like that. But oh yeah, these ideas were all talked about.
I saw pictures of that years ago when I was, when they were coming out with that, and I thought, okay, when are they going to do that? They never did.
Some of them even made it to the mock-up stage.
That's what morphed into the hang glider.
Well, hang gliders are already around, but yeah, the Regalo wing and hang gliders, I'm not sure which came first, but I mean, the Regalo wing is basically how hang gliders are designed, or derivative of. But oh yeah, no question about that. To be honest, you could start a kit model company that made models of nothing but stuff NASA proposed and never built, and you would have a very long line of models. Pretty cool one too, because they came up with some pretty wild, hairy stuff, and so abso-freaking-lutely.
I bet there's some people out there that know about some of that interesting stuff.
Oh, I'm sure they do. So
maybe even some of them worked on it.
Well, most of it never got past the discussion stage, but maybe. So I doubt anybody is familiar with this little vehicle. I wasn't. And basically it's an M7 Priest, but they put a 105 on it, so or a bigger gun on it. So it was the one in Korea is the only time it was used as it was designed. So there's one of your lesser known vehicles. And then also I didn't realize that the Buffaloes, the Amtraks and stuff were used in Korea. I guess it makes sense. They had to land on something in Incheon. But I think they were using the LTV-5C.
That was right. Yeah, right there. Yeah. I'm going to say this wrong. Schladek?
Schladek?
Yeah, he was right. So, yeah, the Regalo wing originated the hang glider. I was right.
Oh, okay. I believe you. There's that actually makes sense. And it's funny that names like Regalo, people like, the what? And I'm like, this was actually kind of a big discovery, but yeah. Oh well. Of course, our standard artillery pieces. You think of the Korean War, you think of jets and Pershing tanks. You forget we had a lot of Shermans, the late model EZ-8s. A lot of them saw service. And you forget how much World War II, basically Korea was fought with World War II equipment and jets. That's kind of the calculus on that. People forget that we had very quickly demobilized after World War II. And we had to get a lot of stuff out of the boneyard and get it cleaned up and working again to fight the Korean War. We were caught completely off guard, and that's why the first year of the war we almost lost it. They pushed us out of Busan. We'd live in a different world.
They were cutting up aircraft that only had a few hours on the Hobbs meter.
Oh yeah. That still happens today. They were talking about the Russians were producing MiG-21s that nobody wanted, and they were going straight from the factory to the boneyard. But they had to keep the factory open. So, and the same thing, absolutely. They were ending contracts left and right. A lot of the equipment, the kind of stuff you don't think about, you don't think about artillery or the little tractors that tow it around and that kind of stuff, but they're absolutely crucial. Without that, you don't get what you need where you need it. And the most important vehicle in military warfare is probably the truck, because you're not doing anything if you don't get the stuff, the people, and the supplies where they need to be. And prime movers are at a premium. If I had to fight World War II and they said you can only have one airplane, it'd be the C-47. They said you could only have one vehicle, it'd be the 2.5-ton truck. I'll just have to give the infantry really good, anti-tank weapons, but without those, you're not going anywhere. There's the M7 Priest, which was what the M37 was derived from, a self-propelled gun. And I didn't even think about it, but the little armored cars, some people call them the Chili's, and the little M8 Greyhounds, I didn't even realize those things were used in Korea, but they were. And I had a devil of a time finding a picture of one in Korea. And I think there's maybe Canadians on it. I'm not sure, or Brits, but this is again something you associate with World War II. and lots of half tracks. And of course, a half track, they put every kind of gun on it you can imagine. M15, the M16. Basically anti-aircraft guns fighting a country that really didn't have much in the way of an air force. But they were real handy on dealing with ground targets also. And the M16 was a quad 50. There's some countries that still use that, the quad 50 today. I don't care who you are. That is a badass weapon system. Basically, you got the firepower of an early model Mustang, and you're running around the back of a glorified armor-plated pickup truck going, yee-haw, and making anything in front of you disintegrate. I've got the twin gun
What could
version.
go wrong with that?
We could have a real fun weekend with that in Vegas.
Sounds like Mars Attacks 2.
I love it. I love it. Tell the green slime to eat this. Because that's what those Martians are when you play that Indian love call. Hey, look, they turned into the green slime. I wonder if that's where it came from.
And from all you green slime fans, Monsters in Motion has a green slime figure for sale on their website.
Finally. The M19, I'd never even heard of this before. I knew the M44 Duster, but I didn't realize before the Duster they were slapping these things on. I think they were old Chaffee frames or something, but twin 40mm guns on a little track vehicle and shooty boom boom. And they're made anti-aircraft. Again, I doubt they were using that role, but they're real handy for shooting up, charging Chi-Coms, because they did those human wave attacks.
Ray Wyatt says, how about a vehicle equipped with quad miniguns?
Well, that's just overkill.
I think they should just put phalanx guns on a platform and send them into the jungle.
Well, that's kind of what that is a prototype of. And let's see, if you were to put quad miniguns on a vehicle, you would need 2 other vehicles to carry the ammo.
Yeah.
Besides, they actually did that. It's called the AC-130 Spectre and Puff the Magic Dragon, the AC-47. But I know what you mean. That action, that idea actually might have some merit. Well, hold on. They did that. The Vulcan 20mm Gatling gun cannon was put on a M113 as an anti-aircraft gun. And again, I don't know if it was ever shot an aircraft in its life, but again, devastating against ground targets. So yeah, not a bad idea, actually. I kind of like that idea.
Greg says, hey, overkill is underrated.
Yeah. Now there's your t-shirt for the night, guys. The little Chaffee tanks, the little M24s, they're another World War II holdover. Great little light tank. Operative word, light. When those things came up against the T-34s that the Chi-Coms had, it was like, nah. I say nay, run away. It did not go well. They literally they're literally bouncing off the armor. Then we brought into Beijing, and that was a tank we needed there all along. It did good work. The Marines, I think, had some of them also, and you notice the real long barrel guns that get the high velocity, and that was a definite tank killer. In fact, though, when we were pushed back the Pusan perimeter, it got so bad they were building dirt embankments for the Pershings to drive up on at a high angle and articulate the gun up, and they were using the tank guns as indirect fire artillery, because they put them up on the berm so they could shoot at a higher angle, because it was that desperate. It was a near run thing. And as I mentioned, the M35 truck, just the most important vehicle in the military. And what I like is everybody and their brother makes a model of the truck, and I think that's a good thing. I've built many of them myself, and not a bad kit. Got it. Again, another World War II vehicle, M36 Jackson. Basically, just the old M10 tank destroyer with a bigger gun. I think it had 90 mil. And tank destroyer, wafer thin armor, cannot take a hit. Open top turret. It's an ambush weapon. But they were used pretty effectively. Get up the top of a hill, shoot down at the tanks, and it's a field day. Just don't take a hit. Of course, our standard command truck.
The crowd said that, oh, where did it go? It just scrolled up. It says something about a 75 millimeter gun developed for the B-25J.
Yeah, that's right. And I know somebody that actually fired one. He said it made the whole airplane shake. And
Is that the one? Is that the story you told me where they took 3 rounds out and they shot the first?
They were
one
supposed to take 3 rounds
said,
out and go shoot a Hulk in the Gulf. They made their pass. The pilot pushed the trigger. They had a guy back. You got to remember, the actual breech of the gun was back, almost mid airplane. About a third of the way back. You got to get back. He loads it up. Okay, you're loaded. They come in. They push that button. You go, boom, and it hit the target. But they were like, everybody's teeth are rattling. Like, oh, dadgum. And you want to do that 2 more times? No. So the guy just tossed the other 2 rounds overboard. Let's go back. I mean, they're shooting at a Hulk in the middle of the Gulf. It's not like we hit it the first time. That's all. And they, it also had 50 calibers in the nose on top of that, which is great because you get tat 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 with the 50 cals, and once they're on target, just push that button for the cannon. You were pretty well guaranteed a hit, and it was.
I always loved that story.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger guns mounted on an air. Not the biggest, because the AC-130's got a sideways firing 105. But yeah, that was definitely a lot of firepower for an airplane of that era. And but it had to, I believe it was a breach. I believe the guy back there had to reload it every time, because no such thing as semi-automatic 75 back then.
Speaking of big guns on airplanes, didn't Hitler try and put a really big gun on the 232, on the 262?
Yeah, they put it. It's actually in the Air Force Museum. They put, I think it was a 57 millimeter on one of them, and that was actually when Watson's Wizards went and started collecting all the aircraft. Operation Lusty, Luftwaffe's secret technologies. They were grabbing all the rockets and rocket planes and jets and anything the Luftwaffe was playing with to bring home to the U.S. They got quite the booty. That's why there's some in museums now. Those are all airplanes that came over on Lusty. Well, anyway, that one with the 57 millimeter gun, they didn't try firing it, but that was Watson. He flew that one himself, and that was his favorite airplane. He liked the way it flew. And it was more than just sticking the gun up there. They had to modify the nose gear to rotate sideways to retract, because that gun ate up everything. I think it was the biggest gun ever mounted on a fighter plane. And unfortunately, one of the German pilots, who was a civilian, was ferrying the airplane, and one of the engines, it didn't quit, it exploded. And in fact, it was I think his name, I think it was Willie Hoffman was his name, and he tried to control the airplane, but it just rolled over on. He couldn't get it back. He had to jump. And he jumped pretty late and got injured. He was in the hospital for a while. But he apologized to Watson. They did an investigation, and they found out that the reason the engine came undone, because they're always worried about sabotage. And that's one of the reasons they had German pilots often ferry the airplanes, so that the German mechanics would be less inclined to sabotage them. Because people forget, we had just stopped shooting at each other. So there was still a lot of bad blood. But they examined the engine and found where the vanes had cracked and come off. And the American mechanic that was supposed to pre-flight the airplane, to his credit, admitted that he failed to check, because you had to check those rotor and stator vanes for cracks for every flight. Those engines only had a 5, 10, 15 hour life on them. And you had every time before they went up, you had to go through every one of those blades and check for cracks, because if you found one, that was it. That engine was done. And the guy admitted he forgot to do it. He signed it off without doing it. And I don't know if it was a absent-mindedness or laziness or what, but so they lost that airplane. But the gun survived. I guess with half the wing blown off, the thing probably spiraled in. The gun actually came to the crash intact. And they recovered it, and that is the gun that's in the United States, the Museum of the United States Air Force, right now on display. And
in Dayton?
In Dayton, Ohio. And I do believe it holds a record as the largest gun ever mounted on a fighter plane. Yeah, metal fatigue. Yeah, those. And you have to remember something. Jet engines are made out of a really intense, complicated, and expensive, and almost laboratory condition made series of alloys and metals, and the Germans had very little in the way of high grade metal towards the end of the war. So they were making those jet engines out of some pretty dubious materials. Same for their tanks. I saw a photograph of a Panther tank, and the front mantlet had split off of the turret on one side, and it had taken a hit from, I believe it was just a straight M375 Sherman. It had been hit in the mantlet, and what had happened was it broke the weld, and the mantlet and the turret separated. And this wasn't the high velocity 76; it was a straight up 75, and it nailed it. And it forced the impact forced and of course they couldn't use the gun after that because half of it wasn't mounted to anything. So the crew abandoned the tank, and they went up and found where it had just jackhammered the mantlet off the front of the turret, and they said that they were running out of every kind of good metal, so a lot of their welds were of dubious quality, and so the jet engines were no better off. Mackie Steinhoff, he's taken off, and he was one of their top aces, considered the best looking man in the Luftwaffe. And he goes roaring down the runway, and one of the engines gave up on him. He couldn't stop it because the ME-262 had horrible brakes. As some of our guys learned once they got them back to the States, we had at least one or two runway overruns, and it had crap for brakes, which is ironic that a jet would have crappy brakes, but oh well. They just it was a great design, but there were definitely, if you tried to tow it by the nose gear, you would pretty much tear the nose off the airplane. So that's why you see them when they're under tow. You'll notice there's a wire cable going from the nose gear to the main gears. So you're pulling it by the nose gear to steer it, but the actual weight bearing is off the main gears. And the good thing was it was designed to be modular. You could basically undo a bunch of screws and rivets and pull the entire nose and tail section off the airplane and stick a new one on. So when planes got damaged, they could swap chunks around real easy. And that was a saving grace of it. And if you look at the landing gear and the wing on a F-86 and an ME-262, you see a lot of similarities. Except you'll notice, and this is kind of getting back to talk about, the one thing you'll notice different, you look at an ME-262 from the front and an F-86 from the front, and the landing gears look similar, but you'll see this big thing sticking to the inside of the F-86, and it's a gigantic brake system. So apparently they did learn something. The late model Jeep, the CJ2, as we would know it in civilian parlance, or the M38. That Jeep came out during the Korean War, as well as the old Willis. And I didn't even know what this was, the M39 utility vehicle. Apparently they had a bunch of little Hellcat chassis, and they just ripped all the guns and everything out of them and just used them as basically APCs and ammo carriers and stuff. And they work great, fast as heck.
Wendell 36 says new build 262s have Learjet engines.
Yeah, CJ610s. That's right. Much more modern engine. A lot more thrust.
I mean, they're building new 262s?
Right, yeah. They built at least 3 of them that are flying at. What do you think's flying at air shows? There are no original UMO power ones flying. There was one guy who wanted to get a UMO power. We had a couple of them. Howard Hughes bought one he wanted to use in the races. And they were like, Howard, the engine's got no life to it. You won't even finish the race. And it's the one I think that ended up at the with Paul Mantz and his museum and Frank Tallman. I believe theirs, or they got it from Howard Hughes because it was out there in California. And because the engines, these engines won't last long enough, it's not worth it. That thing apparently just sat outside for a while until they got it. And one of Howard's little side projects he forgot about. And I don't know what happened to the ME-262 we gave to the Navy. They tested it at Pax River and probably parted it out or something. Or I still can't believe they scrapped all these airplanes. I mean, God, they just crushed them.
The 264 they used it for erosion control. There's a picture of a tail sticking out of the ground along the beach where they piled a bunch of rocks along on top of it to keep the beach from eroding.
You're killing me, Ken.
Yeah, well, when they told me that, I felt like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Hey, the Panther jet that is it's either the reconnaissance Panther jet or the reconnaissance Banshee that's in the Navy Museum at Pensacola right now. A buddy of mine, when he was a little kid, lived in that area. He goes, yeah, it used to be in a park. We used to play on it. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, the Navy just sat up. He goes, they had so many kids getting inside and messing the thing up, they filled the cockpit with concrete, so we couldn't get in it. I was like,
that must have been fun getting back out of the plane.
well, they cleaned it up and redid everything, and it fortunately had been, ironically, the concrete preserved a lot of it, so they were able to clean it up and make a museum display out of it. Now take care, Trey. But it's just it is what it is, you know. The bunch of them, including that big Junkers that they flew back across the ocean, was too big to go on the ship. So Wizard and a bunch of the guys piled in it, gassed it up, and flew it across the Atlantic. They love that airplane, that big Junkers transport they were using, and that thing wound up with a bunch of the others being crushed by a bulldozer and used as landfill for one of the runways at Chicago O'Hare Airport. And, you know, of course, there are none of these left even in museums. And I understand that in 1945, 46, 47, these were just derelict airplanes, okay? And I can, look, if we were that, if we all had that kind of historical perspective or awareness, none of us would ever sold any of the cars we had when we were young. You'd still have both your T-Birds, you know, or your Trans Ams. You know, Steve, how many cars would you still have?
How many what?
We talk about, we can't believe these guys destroyed all these old airplanes, you know, didn't save any for posterity. But they were just old junkers. And I'm like, you got to understand the mentality. How many old cars have we all had as kids or teenagers or young adults that we wish we had now that we never, like, I never should have sold that thing?
Yeah, because nobody ever thought they'd be worth anything.
Exactly. And they thought the same thing after the war. It's just an old Nazi cargo plane. Nobody's going to just grind it up, you know. And fortunately, Hap Arnold, shortly before he passed away, he did say, save at least one of everything that you can, because I want to open up a museum to the Air Force when we become an independent branch. And I want to have some of this stuff. So that's the reason the few foreign aircraft that are in the Air Force Museum are there, is because, you know, he saved them. And the Junkers 88 and a few others. Okay, Steve, of all your old cars, which one would you like to have back?
My 64.5 Mustang convertible.
Ken?
Oh, definitely my 79 Trans Am.
With me, it's a coin toss between my grandma's old 64 Polara, or I also really liked that Malibu that I had, but it was a 77. The car had issues because it was an American car made in the 70s, but I just loved it. And comfortable, and just air conditioner blows snowballs.
They did not see that coming. Thank you, JM.
Anyway, finishing off our little and I'm glad. One thing I'm glad to see is all these weapon systems of Korean War are they're out there in model form. And sometimes like this one, this is like the only kit of the thing that exists, but at least somebody made it. And I also forgot that the actual early M46 Patton tank did make it into the Korean War. That's the thing that Atlantis repops. And I've got one on the shelf. It's really a good little kit, by the way. I haven't had the Pegasus one. But that Atlantis kit, I don't know if it's an old Aurora kit or whatever, that's actually a really good kit. It's not hard to build. It looks good when it's done. The proportions are right. I'm very happy with it. And I highly recommend that if somebody wants to get into armor and never built a model tank before, the Atlantis kit on the M46 is a good one. 8-inch howitzer, again, over the rainbow shooting. And of course the old World War II Willis Jeep. So all that stuff, all that hardware.
That's an interesting camo pattern on that tank. On the M6, on the M46 patent.
Oh yeah, well you notice the Chaffee and the Sherman had the same thing. Apparently, I don't know how much of this is ingrained in fact, but one of the things I was told is they would paint that because apparently for North Korea in Asian culture, I think it's supposed to be a dragon or a tiger, but apparently that's supposed to like impose fear on the enemy, like the shark's mouth on a P-40, and don't know if it had that effect or not, but it made for a wicked cool looking tank.
Whatever works.
Well, we weren't by ourselves though. Don't forget the North Koreans had their share of stuff, and a lot of it, most of it, again, was leftover World War II stuff, but not all of it. One of the
Oh, okay. Did you see what Chris said?
what's that?
Craig?
What? What?
Oh, they said that the Koreans were afraid of tigers.
Oh, okay.
And yes, the Korean War, U.S. tanks often had dragon mouths to intimidate the Koreans and Chinese.
Well, hey, whatever works. I'll tell you right now, though, that tigers are to be feared. A lot of people don't know this, but we actually, I think it was Air Force, had a patrol that was security patrol that was attacked by a tiger, or maybe it was the Army or the Marines, but they had a patrol that was attacked by a tiger. The guys all went to sleep, and apparently they had one man on security, and the tiger got him very quietly. They woke up the next morning, like, why didn't he wake up the next guy? They found blood. His weapon was there. His pack was there, so they knew it wasn't the enemy because they would have taken all that stuff. And they found a blood trail, and they finally figured out it was a tiger got him. And they sent out several teams to go hunt the tiger without success. I think they had to bring in someone in like a local native who knew what he was doing. They finally killed it. But yeah, look, I've seen the footage of tigers and leopards attacking people and animals, and you think orange and black. That in moving through the reeds and stuff, they are bloody invisible. That is an amazing form of camouflage. I mean, it doesn't look like it when you see them walking around in a cage, but you see them out in the wild, you don't see them. And I didn't realize those cats could move that fast. And they are very impressive animals. So a lot of hardware left over from World War II on the Russian side, and all of it, thankfully, people make kits of. And yes, the North Koreans use those old AN-2s, the Colts, for just all kinds of stuff, mainly as cargo planes, but they can land in a tennis court. And they had all the little Russian armored cars and stuff. And these things, I think, were more made for attacking the South Korean army. They didn't last long against the Americans, but they terrified the locals. And, of course, it's all Russian or Chinese copies of Russian hardware, the BTRs and everything. And basically, their version of our Jeep and all that stuff. And they had, the IL-10 aircraft that they used is literally just an updated version of the World War II IL-2. And I've got a kit model of one that somebody gave me that I've been sitting on my to-do shelf along with 100 others for so long. But it's, they did have their share of ground attack. James Garner, the actor, was wounded in Korea. And I think he might have been wounded twice. And one time it was by one of our aircraft that mistakenly, attacked the wrong target. And but I don't know how often our guys were attacked by these things, but they did have them. They did use them. The IL-28 Beagle bomber, which I think is just a cool looking airplane. It's a first generation jet bomber, straight wings, but it's got the single pilot cockpit and the glazed nose. I just always thought it's just a cool looking airplane. If I could have an airplane to take to air shows, that would be it. But the thing has got a swept tail, so I'm not sure what the Aleutian was thinking, but they that thing, and Korea still uses a couple of those things today, make it about a 70-year-old airplane still in service. But I don't think they ever actually did any bombing or shooting, but apparently a couple of them were sighted north of the Yalu River. So they were in the war, but I don't think they did any actually shooty, bang, bang, bomby bomb. A lot, again, Chinese hardware, the 152, devastating self-propelled gun. Now, this got into weeds on this. The JS2, the Russian heavy tank, I suppose a Patton could have taken one, especially if he got the first shot in. This was not a tank to trifle with in a gun duel because it had a ton of armor, literally, and a huge gun. But it was slow as Christmas and was prone to break down. That's why they didn't stay in service very long. Apparently, the Chinese had some of them in reserve, but I don't think they ever actually saw any combat. But they were still there, so I include them. This photograph, these two photos, were on the left, were the only photos I could find of the thing in Korea. And I'm not even sure if that's in Korea or in China, but so who's to say? LA-7 fighter, the Weichkin, pretty good airplane too. The Lag-9, another really good airplane. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think one of those may have gotten one of our jets because we got one of their jets with a prop job. The Lisunov, it's a licensed copy of the C-47. Everybody used those things because it's a C-47. The guy that defected in the MiG, lived his life here in the USA. That had to make him happy. And of course, you had North Korean and Chinese troops, and IMAX makes both of them. So if you want to do a Korean War diorama, you can get the appropriate troops. The Polikarpov PO2, a pre-World War II design, obviously. Basically, the Russians answered to a Stearman. They had their night witches in World War II that would go out and terrorize the Germans by dropping bombs from it in the middle of the night. And they were used as bed check Charlie. Now, an embarrassing little tidbit. One of these airplanes, and probably a North Korean one, holds a record of the only biplane to quote unquote down a jet. Didn't shoot it down. Being made of wood and fabric, they didn't show up on radar worth a flip, so the night fighters couldn't track them. The jets and prop jobs we sent after them. Okay, Craig says that, yeah, the Chinese credited LA-9 or 11 as downing an F-86, but there's no record of the F-86 being lost. Yeah, he probably got some, put a few bullet holes in him and claimed a victory and, propaganda. I do know that a Corsair or a Skyraider got a MiG in Vietnam, and I think a Corsair got a MiG and a Sea Fury got a MiG in Korea. Chalk one up for the Fleet Air Arm. But the Polikarpov, a guy in a F-89 had gone after him. And, an F-94C or B. Anyway, and he kept shooting at him. He was going so fast he couldn't get a lock. So the next night, a pilot decided to slow up and go after it and got way too slow and tried to maneuver and stalled. And this thing flew down low and couldn't recover. So literally flew himself into a stall. And like in that movie Skydancer with David Carradine, where the guy in the Mustang gets too slow, stalls and goes in. So they gave him credit for the kill. And that's, don't was that old saying, old age and treachery shall overcome youth and skill? But the old Polikarpov, man, it was just, it's one of those unstoppable little forces like the Stearman. Su-100.
Chris says, isn't that what the 5 o'clock Charlie flew on the MASH episode?
Yes. Well, actually, no. I mean, hold on. That is what he would have flown, but in MASH he was flying a Ryan PT-22, the same thing that Harrison Ford had his mishap in, where he had to crash land at the golf course near Santa Monica. That's what he would have flown, but he was actually flying a Ryan PT-22 because I don't think there are any flying Polikarpovs in the U.S. Make a great little airplane to take to an air show. And by all accounts, wonderful little airplane. Docile, slow as crap. I mean, I think it has a reputation of being more docile than a Stearman for sure. And but bulletproof little design. Then we get the SU-100. That another World War II leftover. Good solid piece of armor.
Oh, Michael Niven said that Skyraider had a jet kill in Vietnam.
Yeah, it was a Skyraider. Yeah, and MiG-17. Yeah, that sounds right. Just caught him at the right angle. Guy flew in front of him. He let him have it. That's a confirmed kill too. Obviously, the T-34. They used both the 76 and the 85. But the 85 was a preferred one. That was a tank that gave all our guys all the trouble because they were running against Shermans and Sheridans and or Chafees and stuff that couldn't deal with it. The Easy 8 Sherman could take one with the HVAP round. And one thing about Korea, at least now we had enough HVAP rounds to go around. In World War II, there was a real shortage of them because everybody needed tungsten. The AK-18, this is another bed check Charlie. This looks more like the Ryan PT-22, so let's say 5 o'clock Charlie on MASH would have been flying one of these. Because it looks a lot like that. And they both have 5-cylinder radials. So pretty close. This was just what it was, a trainer that they also used as a night bomber and all that kind of stuff. And it was another one that gave everybody a devil of a time because there was no radar signature. And ugly little airplane, but apparently a real joy to fly. Of course, the Ryan PT-22 ain't no beauty queen. Yak-9. These are the only photo. The North Koreans don't run around with cameras like we did, so not everybody can take pictures all the time like we did. So a lot of times the only photos of these things are after we run over on an airfield. But very competent World War II holdover. One of our very first kills of the war was an F-82 Twin Mustang that shot down a Yak-11. Now the Yak-11 is a trainer. It's kind of like their AT-6, only a lot faster. But they did use them in combat missions. And from what I read in this incident, that photo was taken by the the nav operator, the radar operator in the right seat. He has 35 millimeter camera. That's the only picture you get. But that's just after or as they're shooting that thing down. And that was all the photo he could get. But it's a real photo over Kempo. And apparently, the pilot got out, the backseater didn't. The pilot opened his parachute, but when he landed, he tried to shoot it out with the claim was he tried to shoot it out with the Republic of Korea troops that surrounded him, and they let him have it. Although, that's the official story. I'm not really sure what really happened, but oh well. But that was basically an advanced trainer that they did you fly combat missions in. And so that's the Ruski hardware. But all this stuff you can find kit models of. You can get aftermarket North Korean decals. So I'm happy to say that you can model the Korean War stuff. And there's a few others that I missed.
Dale Comer says with an AM-9, just about anything could shoot down a jet.
Well, now that's true. Didn't used to be the case, but yeah, now it is. The early AIM-9s were very problematic. The Russians had a very different approach on air-to-air missiles than the Americans, and unfortunately, the unreliability of the AIM-9 is what led to one of them hitting I believe it was a Chinese MiG and not detonating. And as a result of that, he flew home with this thing sticking out the side of his airplane, which regrettably they sent to Moscow. It was torn apart, and they decided this is the way to make missiles, not the way we make them. Because they had these old tail beam chasing missiles that were pretty limited. And then they started copying our technology. Both of us started improving it. The early AIM-9s were like you would expect, were really trouble prone. But now they're so deadly it's scary. I mean, it's really hard to shake a modern missile. The other missile system I understand, which you can buy a kit of, that was really dangerous was the Army's Hawk missile system. Apparently, it was extremely capable, but it was a very large land-based missile. You weren't going to strap one of those on a fighter plane. Have fun, Chris. It was a Taiwanese jet that shot the AIM-9. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a Taiwanese F-86 that shot the Sidewinder. I don't think it was the pilot's fault. I'm assuming the missile just failed to detonate, but that gave the Russians a big technology jump. And yeah, you can strap a Sidewinder. The Army put them on the Chaparral, which was a tracked vehicle, and for area defense. They were not, I don't think they were used in combat, but it definitely gave them a capability they didn't have before. And the Sidewinder is a deadly missile, especially the late models. They're all aspect and everything. They're far more capable than they used to be. They can see through a lot of the countermeasures. A couple of friends of mine guys I work with that are fighter pilots, and always talking about this kind of stuff. And of course, obviously, an Air Force and Navy fighter pilot is going to get a very good education in missile capability. And there are ways to escape one, but you do anything wrong and you're not going to escape. That's one of the reasons most of your top shelf fighters, like your F-15s and stuff, that's one reason they like to have twin tails. In case one gets hit, you got another one. F-16, of course, is a technically low-cost fighter, so they kept it more economical. But it's a lot of aircraft have twin tails, and I can't help but think that the redundancy is part of that. And,
a couple people have said that the Iranians put Hawks on F-14s.
Okay, F-14 is probably big enough you could do that, because a Hawk is not a small missile. In fact, the stupidest thing, since you brought that very thing up, let me show you a picture of the dumbest thing I have ever seen in kit models. Give me just a second. I have railed on this before. Some of you probably already know where I'm going. It's the Adams models. Here it is, right here. Aerial missile transporter. You know where I'm going.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let me just crop that. File, save as, JPEG, and Hawkman, so 150. Okay, you guys are going to love this. Anybody that knows anything about aircraft is about to laugh till milk comes out of their nose. This is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got one because it's an excellent model helicopter, but just all kinds of no. And the thing is, everything's made, what it is Adams made the Hawk missile battery, which there's one on the bottom right of the artwork. And it's a good kit, too, if it's anything like this Cessna helicopter I built. This is the only helicopter Cessna ever built. It was a really good helicopter, too. But apparently Adams just got it in their mind somehow that this would sell as a kit. And, of course, anybody who knows anything about aircraft or has even the faintest understanding of weight and balance knows that this just cannot be.
I remember that picture, yeah.
And I'm sitting here just going, the thing is, it's really, and I've got it, it's, I think I've got it in the helicopter shelf in the main room. It's really a good model. It's a little bit of an odd scale. It's like 1:43, I think. It's a really, really good model. Adams cut some great molds. And
Robert says somebody's brother-in-law came up with that idea.
Probably. Well, what it is the thing is they could have just sold the helicopter, the Skyhook alone, I think the Army called it, I think it was a Seneca, but Cessna called it a Skyhook. Now, a little bit of a story behind that helicopter, despite this, and what it is, Adams made the helicopter and they made the missiles, and for some reason they thought this would help sell the missiles. This has got to be something that get concocted because basic weight and balance, there is no way that thing would fly. And I probably should do a little research just to make sure, but no, Hawk missiles are heavy, and just no. Although it does have a certain Johnny Quest factor going for it, I got to admit. But
Thunderstruck says would make a hell of a booster rocket.
yeah, now that I would have been more inclined to buy. They did try putting rados on helicopters, and the photograph I saw just showed a big burn mark and a bunch of helicopter parts. But I think it was either a CH-36 Choctaw or an H-19, and I think it was the Navy, and they put a bunch of rados and bolted them on a frame to the sides just to help it lift off. And apparently one of the frames broke and the rockets went loose right into the aircraft and kaboom. It was every bit as bad as you can imagine and then some. But that helicopter is a real helicopter. It was made by Cessna. I think they called it the CH-1 for Cessna Helicopter 1. And the Army loved the helicopter. And the reason it's got that snoot on it is, unlike a Bell 47, which has the engine behind the pilot, Cessna decided to put the engine in front and then shaft the rotor. And that way, it actually had a couple of advantages. It degraded visibility, obviously, a little bit because the engine was in front of you. But you didn't have that thing rattling right behind your back. And it allowed them to have a larger cabin with back seats because it's a 4-place helicopter. And the Army loved the helicopter. They said it's
Probably
really
easy to look on the engine sitting up front.
I'm sure it is, yes. And they actually, the helicopter met, unlike most aircraft that are ordered by the military, this one apparently actually met every goalpost that they put up for it. All the requirements were met, and they liked dealing with Cessna. They went to first off, the Army had bought planes from Cessna before. They were familiar with them, but when they went to the factory, they saw that Cessna had a nice big factory that was very clean, very well run. It was a professional operation. They were absolutely capable to meet the Army's requirements for the numbers they needed and the part support. It was all a matter of timing. This helicopter came out just as the Army was moving towards turbine helicopters. That's a piston engine. And also the Army was concerned about having too many types of helicopters. They needed to streamline their logistics chain. So for reasons that were purely timing and logistical, they didn't buy it. They sold a few of civilian helicopters, but Cessna was not known as a helicopter company, and they just got out of the helicopter business. And that's like one of the greatest little helicopters that never was. I don't know how many they built, but apparently it was just a really good little chopper. And but there were other good helicopters that were more established, and the Army, as the reasons I just stated. So, and it's certainly, I will, without doing any research, I will all but guarantee you it never flew the way you see in that picture.
Carl Wessel says the Hawk missile weighs 1,287 pounds.
Yeah, maybe one guy in that helicopter on light fuel might be able to sling load one of them. Maybe. The only way it was flying like that is if those are just hollow tubes made of fiberglass to take to an air show or something to show off to people. But nope. And so that was the story on all that. It's a lot of here.
One of those missiles probably weighs more than the helicopter does itself.
Probably. Well, what the heck? Let's check out what the Google says. As long as you're here. Cessna Skyhook. Okay, they built less than 50 of them. It just says tilde 50. Only ever built by Cessna. Yep. First helicopter to land on the summit of Pikes Peak and the last piston engine helicopter to set a world altitude record. Like I said, good little chopper. And developed from the Siebel S4. Okay. No. That doesn't look anything like it. Maybe they used a blade mechanism or something. But
So you see how much it weighs?
I'm looking. Let me check here. Production introduction in 1956. Production ended in 62. CH-1B awarded Cessna $1.1 million contract for 10 aircraft. Known as a YH-41 Seneca. For marketing purposes, a CH-1A prototype was painted in olive drab army scheme. All right, unique. This is created by Richard Ten Ike. What a name. That was good. Okay. Yeah, okay, you're right, Ken. The forward engine location provided ease of access, efficient cooling, and frees the center of gravity behind the cockpit in use for disposable loads. So you were partly right there on that. Engine, 260 horsepower. Looking for the specs here. Okay, gross weight 3,100 pounds, empty weight 2,080.
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah, but that gives it a useful load of, I don't know, right at a 1,000-pound, 1,020-pound useful load. Well, empty weight, you got to put some fuel on it and a pilot. So maybe realistically 800-pound useful load with some fuel.
He couldn't even lift one.
Yeah. So we know that never happened. I just think they spent a little too much time with the brandy bottle and, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? Kids will love it.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, hey, we got this helicopter. It's military. Hey, maybe we should put some missiles on it. Oh, we got this kid over here. It's got missiles in it.
Yeah, that was a design by Maynard. Oh, God, what was his name, Steve? Dan Aykroyd's... Huh? Dan Aykroyd's character, the toy maker.
Oh, Erwin Mainway.
Mainway. I don't know why I can never remember his name. That was this is a kit model by Erwin Mainway. You know, and the kids will love it. I remember one time he's talking about the doll with the
Packet Glass. It's a science project.
Yeah, he's got
it's prisms.
Yeah, he's got the toy doll with the switchblade thumbs. I guess yeah, it's cool. So you know, Ken gets cut. Big deal. You were feeding them ravioli full of chalk. Hey, yeah, nutrition.
I worked for guys like that.
Huh?
Tom Fox got it. He knew Mainway.
Ah. You gave the kids ravioli full of chalk. What can I say? I got a good deal on the truckload of the stuff. But you know, I kind of get the feeling here that you're leaning against me no matter what I say. Erwin Mainway. One of SNL's more enduring characters.
Robert Rodriguez says they could just drag it along the ground.
Well, this is why Hawk missiles were towed behind vehicles, you know, because I actually saw.
Maybe it worked. Yeah, that JATO idea might have not too been bad. Get it off the ground.
The radar on helicopter. Now you got to be wondering about that.
There's another good idea for you.
Oh, by the way, here's your useless piece of trivia for the day. What was the first airplane to fly with a JATO? And I give you a hint. It was a light aircraft. It was a military thing, but it was a light aircraft.
Was that thing that they launched off the back of a truck out in the desert?
No, that's ZEL. That's zero-linked launch. No, back during World War II, an air coupe was the first plane to take off with the JATO system.
An air coupe?
Yep, it was because they were just testing the theory.
Tiny space helmet, a plastic bag.
Yep. Yes, it was.
Also, JATO didn't work well on cars. Supposedly, some people have tried to put them on cars and ended up getting Darwin Awards.
Well, you
you look at some of the early land speed record trials, like on the Opals, they just put a bunch of rockets on the back of the streamlined car and lit them off. And half the time the car blew up.
Well, we laugh, but that's how we learn. And
what could possibly go wrong?
oh, let me count the bloody ways.
If you learned you didn't want to be a test driver for them.
Hey, Dale Comer got it. Error Coop.
Yep, that's right.
ERRCOUPE.
Yep, Coop. And
did you find any Rado helicopters?
No, I can't. It's like it's one of those things that
maybe it wasn't such a good idea.
yeah, it's having trouble. Let me see. Rocket. Let me try spilling it out. Rocket. Okay. Rocket assist test on helicopter.
Oh, JM. Again, I'm sure I'm saying this wrong. Chowdek. Okay. Now, Bell did test direct thrust jet engines on a Huey and set a speed record with it.
Okay. This is back in the 50s.
The golden days of let's try that out and see if it works.
Hey, we got these three things. Let's put them together and see what happens.
Yeah, we got them just laying around. They're surplus. Let's see what happens.
And of course, you got the rocket tip blades, but
the crowd says this conversation is getting close to a coyote with an Acme catalog.
I'll tell you what, it ain't far off. Well, you look at some of the crap that they tried in the past, and you're like, you can't be serious, and you go, oh yeah, they were quite serious. They didn't know because they didn't, it seemed like a good, let's put all these rockets, onto to help this thing lift off, because lift off is where, we waste all the energy and everything, and we'll, okay, give you another example. You want to talk about it? We talked briefly, I think, before about the Yankee extraction system on the Sky Raiders. Wait
a minute. Hang on.
Diane's got it. Short straw got to test it.
Dale Comer says the people who flew the Eurocoup with a small JATO motor were the founders of JPL.
Tom Fox, hold my beer, Jethro.
Well, now Fat Albert of the Blue Angels still does the JATO takeoff. Trey just did a model of it recently, and the B-47s. You watch Street Caravan, they had to use the JATOs for takeoff, and but the thing is that in the case of the Sky Raider, they didn't have room for an ejection seat because it was a World War II design. So somebody got the bright idea, what if we put an oversized bottle rocket over the pilot's head and just have it shoot out and extract him? It'll just pull him right out of the airplane. We'll cut his seat belts, and we'll yank him up to a safe altitude and we'll open a parachute. And I think it actually got used once, but haven't been able to confirm that. But I'm like, literally, it just paint Acme on the side of that thing.
It would be nutty enough to try. You gotta test something like that first before you come
on. You got ordered to try it. That's who.
Hey, Sarge, I'm here. What am I going to test today? Oh, we're going to test an ejection seat. Oh, cool.
Okay. I did find a picture of this one. In 1954, the U.S. Marine Corps tested the H-19 Chickasaw helicopter for a concept to improve lift in hot, high, or heavily loaded conditions. The concept involved installing rocket nozzles at the tip of each rotor blade with the fuel tank in the center above the rotor hub. The system provided enough fuel for 7 minutes of operation. And it was considered successful, although it was never adopted.
Yeah, successful for 6 minutes.
I just...
As soon as you ran out of fuel on those rotors, you were going down like a rock.
Well, no.
Then you just do what's that called? Darn! It just slipped my mind. You know, when you lose an engine in a helicopter and
when you rotor down. Yeah.
There's a term for that. I can't think of the name of it.
Auto rotation.
Auto rotation. Yes. No, you don't crash. If you do it right, you don't crash. Usually. You actually have to practice that.
A lot.
I
remember sitting out at Hooper Field at Rucker and watching the National Guard doing auto rotations in the UH-1, and you got to be pretty bloody aggressive with it. And they're pulling that stick way back, and that thing's flaring up, 30-degree nose up deck angle to bleed off the energy and the speed and everything. And if you get it wrong, the thing is, those blades, since the engine's disconnected, they're working on inertia, and if you flatten the pitch to get them to build up as much speed as possible on the way down, and then you pull back, you pull up the collective as you do the flare if they start biting. But all they have is inertia, so as they start biting the air and producing lift, the thing starts to slow down the rate of descent, but the blades start to lose RPMs because there's no power to them. So you have this window that you do it in where you can land softly enough you don't damage the helicopter, or at least don't get anybody killed. But if you do it too high, then you wind up falling the last little whatever. And if you do it too late, you wind up basically flying into the ground. So it's a balancing act, and that's why they rehearse it so much. The heavier the helicopter blade, the easier it is to auto-rotate. The Robinson is notoriously finicky because it has those little skinny, lightweight blades. So when you flare that thing and pull in the collective, you got one-shot window. If you do it too soon, then you just wind up falling when you're done. If you do it too late, you just fly into the dirt.
It can be done, but you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, the old Bell 47 that had the heavy wooden blades on them, the early ones, the guy told me that they used to take them to air shows. The Army would take them to air shows, and they would demonstrate an auto rotation. And the guy would, be, flying by at about 100 feet, and you'd hear him turn the motor off or whatever. Helicopter come down, he'd bury the collector. He had his speed up, and he'd flare and land, slide to a stop. And he goes, those old blades were so heavy, they still had so much inertia that he could pull the collective, kick the pedal, pick it up, do a 90-degree turn, and set it back down.
Oh, whoa.
So, but
yeah. Tail cover says the flight instructors who train pilots to auto-rotate has some special cojones.
yeah, it's a lot of fun, I'm sure, and it happens fast. The helicopters are incredibly unforgiving machines. It's weird. I cannot find. I read it in a book and I saw a photograph, and it's like it's disappeared from the internet. When I don't know if it was the Navy or the Marines, but they tried to put Rado or Jado bottles on a helicopter, and I want to say it was an H-19, but one of them broke loose and it destroyed the helicopter, and I was just kind of like, oh, that should be easy to find. And I'm typing away. I'm like, nope, not a thing. Like it never happened. Swept that one under the rug. But
all right,
that's kind of teeing me off here.
What?
That's kind of ticking me off that I can't find it. Accidents.
I was trying to eject from a helicopter. They don't.
Yeah.
They did talk about blow off blades and stuff, but they're like, nah, that's not going to work, Accident helicopter.
Yeah, there you go.
Rado.
I've heard that before.
And helicopters beat the air into submission.
Oh yeah, that's an old saying. That's been around for a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, it's one of those things that it's probably an obscure one-off accident that just never made its way into the internet. But
Darkwood says check email.
check email, okay.
Oh, good question. Can you auto rotate a Chinook?
Absolutely.
I would suppose so.
Oh, yeah.
Lemur Crazy says Russians have a helo that shoots out the blades and has ejection seats. So I guess they
Okay.
made it work.
Now, Mike, Dioptrix, is that a JATO assisted takeoff, or is he crop dusting or spraying something? Because that does look like JATO coming out of the bottom. Hold on, copy image. Let me.
No, if you get shot down, you're not just dead. That you do have options. You just can't get out of the helicopter.
Yeah, it's how you want to die.
Okay, crop file, save as. Okay, let me get a picture up here. Okay. And
Oh, okay. Jam says Bell made one, but never went into production on the Cobra.
one what? Oh, ejection seat?
Ejection seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had that blow off blades and everything, but it was. I mean, those things are heavy. They weigh about 800 pounds a piece, and that comes right out of your useful load. But here is the JATO helicopter. At least it was an H-19. I was right. I don't know if that's the same one that later had the mishap, but the photograph I saw, there were just scattered parts all over the place and smoke.
Herman said, I had to leave for a while, but I'm back now. Did anything catch on fire? Actually, yeah, we're kind of.
Well, the helicopter.
Right.
And let's see here. Yeah, the little one-man helicopters, a personal air cavalry. Okay, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, this is almost steampunk. Okay, I got to share this with you. Copy. Hold on. Right. Take me a second to put a slide together here. Edit. Paste. Let me get another. Let's see. Copy. Thank you, Daryl. That's great. Hold on. Edit. Paste. Let's resize.
What is this supposed to be trying to accomplish there?
Heavy lift. One of the biggest problems you have with helicopters is getting off the ground.
Well, that might come in handy if you have to auto rotate just before you hit the ground.
There's that use also. Okay, crop, fall, personal air cavalry. Okay, hold on. Okay, you guys are not going to believe this. I don't know, it was the 50s or 60s. Helitroopers, horse troopers. You're going to love this. You guys are going to freaking love this. Because I love it.
What'd you find?
This is what Daryl just sent me. And this is Steampunk brought to life. And transform, fit to screen. This is the personal air cavalry unit.
You know, those helicopter blades don't really spin that fast. Isn't it possible?
I think it's about 11. I think it's about 11 times per second.
Like they used to do with the bullets through propeller.
I believe they rotated about 11 times per second.
Now I know where they got Little Nelly from.
Tell me that is not the coolest frickin' thing. I mean, it's just, what could be wrong with a bunch of infantry privates flying around with one of these things? But, I mean, that is just steampunk.
everything's labeled and diagrammed. Holy cow! Someone put a lot of thought into this.
Oh, just got an email from Tom Daniel. No, it's funny. He was talking about he just saw a great television tribute to the Hercules, the Herky Bird. He didn't know they were still in production.
Shades of James Bond.
I'll tell you what, I'm like, okay, if those things ever go on the market, I'm getting one.
You better get the heavy lift option.
That only hurts because it's true.
Make sure the pilots have a height limit.
Oh, that's okay, Ken. It's self-correcting. I mean, like the guy's lobbing a grenade. Or maybe that's a mortar.
Shooting his 45.
But I just love how they just slide over his dropping grenade. One's got a pistol. I mean, this is basically cowboys and Indians with iron horses. It's just, I was just like, scattered along the western slope of the Asiatic coastal range, the copter troopers and their mounts cluster in little groups as the rising sun climbs behind them. The jump-off moment is fast approaching. Within minutes, the sun will burst blindingly above them to cover their westward assault. The first elements of the Blitz landing, submarine-born Marines, had hit the enemy coast only 3 days ago, seized the controlling crests and passes of the coastal hills in bloody fighting, well covered by massive flights of waterborne jet fighters.
Starring John Wayne, John Agar.
Oh, no. Errol Flynn, baby.
Randolph Scott.
Swooping in suddenly, helitroopers on powerful sky horses could wreak havoc with enemy troops, by Frank Tinsley.
This is an AIP picture in the making.
Absolutely. The thing is, look at the design. There's no reason that couldn't actually work.
Oh.
Actually, with today's technology, yeah, you probably could get it to work.
I love that the thing's actually got a saddle like a horse. Oh, look at that. Passenger grab rail with his blanket over the back. Christ, he's even got a Winchester in the sky. Yeah, I was like...
The passenger grab rail is the thing that has me kind of like...
Hold on. Look at the guy in the picture and tell me he does not look like a Star Wars bike trooper.
Dream Theory says, enemy troops die laughing.
The only thing that's missing from that trooper is a pack of Marlboros rolled up in his sleeve.
No, man. Look at him. He's a Chesterfield man. He don't need no filter tips. He smokes Lucky Strikes. Unfiltered. For that smooth tobacco flavor.
Somebody said, is there a nose gunner in one of the other helicopters?
Well, that's a full-size helicopter. It's got a two-man crew.
Oh.
Wow.
That does the mopping up later.
Good guy. Okay, guys, there's your kit bash. That's awesome.
That's amazing. Now, if this isn't the next Tarantino movie, I don't know what is.
That's what you call it, sky horses.
Yeah.
Blazing Saddles?
That really does look like it came off the set of Dune. One of you guys out there needs to kit bash this thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, you load the pilot up with the ammo. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, you got Jen, and he's a fighting man. He's, I'll tell you exactly who you want to hire for that job. You want to hire those guys that are 5'3", 5'5", 100 pounds soaking wet, because everything goes to useful load.
Here we go. Here's the Mickey Rooney movie.
Yeah, really. They call it the Mickey Rooney Battalion.
They could probably blow it out of the sky with a leaf blower.
No, Steve. Steve, you're on the wrong end of that. You're flying the leaf blower.
I love those rollers for the wheels.
Well, you know,
So
one does like their mobility.
On the ground.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
Well, that's Ravel says the original G.I. Joe could have used this.
Yeah.
12-inch G.I. Joes.
The real ones. That's just amazing. I love that.
And then Sky Pirates.
Helicopter soldiers from Mars. You know what this belongs in? This belongs in what is it? Sky Marshal in the World of Tomorrow.
Oh, Sky Captain.
Sky Captain. Right,
Yeah.
That's what this belongs in. Fighting the robots.
Why not? You know, I mean, heck yeah. That movie was I don't know how to. I mean, it's like I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. I guess I did. It was just so weird.
Different. Yeah.
But I appreciated that about it. And
of course it was. It had Gwyneth Paltrow in it.
But I mean, Saturday night.
Somebody explained the big wheels, and according to the instructions or whatever, the reason the wheels are so big like that is so they'll float.
Water landings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for water. I don't think so. Those things would find this in the water.
Where did you find this?
It was sent to me by Daryl.
Oh, okay. Okay. Probably from its Mechanics Illustrated from 1944 or something.
Hey, I'm good with it, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is great.
I just, you know, the creativity of people. They just do not. They don't disappoint.
Yeah, 18-year-olds flying this. What could go wrong?
Oh yeah, I said a whole bunch of infantry privates running around in these things. I don't see any potential issues. No, sir. Furthermore, I'd like to tell you how excited the boys are about the opportunity to hot rod these puppies.
Oh, they think it'd be a great idea. Heck yeah! I'm sure those. I'm sure those tail pins are really efficient too.
I could just see them using them in California. I won't even go any further, but.
Well, in California, just the way that, you know, you just use them to avoid traffic.
Well, you could just go right down in front of the store, go in, grab an armload of stuff, and take off.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, like you do.
I'm sure that rudder behind the pilot there was highly effective.
Oh, yeah. So it's like something you'd find on a kiddie's merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Hey, I used to enjoy riding that kiddie's merry-go-round. There's one other thing. Huh?
1956. Mechanics Illustrated, this was.
You got it, Max. You nailed it.
Thank you very much. Well, I proffer a thought just to kind of keep things in perspective, okay? 1956 is about, I'm downloading a picture here, is about the same time, I believe, that the Navy was using the Mercator. Now...
Tom Fox says Harrison Ford says he can fly one.
Oh, he's Harrison Ford. Han Solo, I'm sure he could. Now, I'm going to show you a picture that's going to look like kind of a normal airplane on the surface, but it goes hand in hand with what we're looking at here. This is the Martin Mercator, and you'll see it here.
Flying Hell's Angels.
It's funny you should make that particular observation.
That's what Lance says.
Well, you see I put up a picture of a relatively normal looking airplane, right? This is the Martin Mercator.
Yeah.
Navy had a small number of them. At the same time the Army is playing with this, somebody suggests this any idea. It's a little hard to tell But that airplane, you see the two radial engines turning the propellers. What you can't really see that well is underneath those engines, there's a couple of big scoops. Because they also have a pair of full-size jet engines wedged into the nacelles. So this is a compound aircraft, props and jets, okay? This is a working Navy aircraft that went into field service with radial pistons, and jet engines, okay? So, by the way, long story short, it wasn't exactly a success, and they lost quite a few of them. Point being that this is the same time frame as our seemingly crazy, Sky Soldier idea, but these were the times, right? This was the out-of-the-box thinking of the military at that time. So,
how many of these things did they make?
The Mercator?
Yeah.
Let's see, I got it right here. They made 21.
Okay.
And they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crashes.
Max.
Who made it?
Martin.
Okay. William says it's Mercator.
Like a Mercator map. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I was thinking, heavens, the Mercatroid. So, Let's see. March 8th of 51, one flew in the Atlantic Ocean, killed 4. February 6th of 52, one ditched north of Cyprus at night, out of fuel with no power. The only one they lost was the aircraft commander once they were already in the water. So that wasn't really the airplane's fault. They ran out of fuel. That happens. 22 August 56 was shot down by the Chinese. Okay, killed the crew of 16. Snooper. Again, how dangerous the spy missions were, because that's what this was made for. 57 Mercator lost in an accident. Doesn't say if anybody was killed, but when they don't say, I assume so. 58, one of them crashed at Ocean View, Virginia, when it lost an engine on approach, killing 4 crew and injuring 3 civilians. 59 was attacked by MiGs, shot down. Serious injury to the tail gunner, but apparently they limped back. And in 1960, one crash en route to a Dana Air Force base, killing all 16. It's hard to say. But
how many did they make? And how many crashed?
20. They made 21. It shows 6 losses, but 2 of them were shoot downs. I don't count those because it wasn't the airplane's fault. 1 was fuel exhaustion. So only 3 of them were, given the era, not horribly out of place for a military airplane of that era. It was replaced by the EA-3B Sky Warrior, which was a jet, and was carrier based, which the Mercator was not. And it was also replaced by the Constellation, the Warning Star.
William says it was a long-range bomber.
Yeah, but judging by the size of these crews and the losses, they were using them on spy missions, which a lot of bombers are using spy planes. That was very common. And
I guess they had the jet engine so that when it needed to, it could get extra speed.
I don't think they would. Yeah, I don't think they left the jet engines going in flight. I'm trying to find a rear view of the thing so you can see the jets, but they're buried so far in there. Most of the photos are frontal 3/4 views. There's one from behind, but the photo's so dark you can't see anything. But I mean, you got to give them credit for just being willing to conceive of and put into service something like that.
Garfield said he sent you a couple pictures.
Oh, okay. Oops. Hit the button, Max. Let's go.
Top box says 25 to 33% crash rate. Okay by Boeing standards.
Ow. Okay, they have not shown up yet. Oh, here it is. Not spam. For some reason, Garfield, I went to spam, but I caught it. Okay.
Oh, Shaggy Buzz says, did they ever make a model of it?
Oh yeah, I believe there is. Yeah, I've actually seen those little one-man choppers you sent me the pictures. I include the backpack chopper, which I think is just the coolest thing ever. Let's see here. Scalemates, Mercator. Go to the Great Bible over at Models. And let's see. Combat Models does and Nostalgic and Anagram all do it. There does not appear to be a conventional styrene model of it. Anagram makes one. Nostalgic Models makes, they're all 1/72. No, Anagrams is 1:144 scale. Esoteric Models does 1:172. And Vacuform, that's a vac kit, I think. Yeah, premium Vacuform kits with metal parts and decals. Not suitable for children under 14 or guys over 40. Oops, come back here. I'm trying to figure out if this one from Nostalgic Models is a Vacuform kit or a resin. It's resin. Okay. So Anagram, well, I mean, there are kits, but not styrene. And well, guys, it's 9 o'clock. It's that time of the evening. I have a commitment, and I've been communicating, trying to get up with Dan Monroe to see if he can come on, but that guy is, his channel's gotten so big, he is super, super busy and traveling a lot too. So we haven't been able to work anything out yet. Hopefully we will in the future. I'll try not to be too annoying, but keep giving him a buzz. And if you haven't checked out his channel, Movies, Music, and Monsters, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you enjoy this channel, you'll probably enjoy that one. And so that's what I got for right now. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hope you had a good time. And guys, any little parting thoughts before we go?
Good night, everyone. Thank you once again for listening and participating. We hope to see you again next week.
Thanks for coming out, guys. As always, it's been a lot of fun. You guys come up with some great comments, and the knowledge that's out there is just outstanding. Y'all have a good evening. Hopefully we'll see you next time.
And happy Mother's Day to all.
Oh, yeah, it's Mother's Day. Forgot about that.
Ooh, are you in trouble?
Well, I already got my wife a gift for that, so cover my bases. All
right.
I'm not a fool. Well, not often. Okay, yeah, maybe on occasion. Sometimes. It's been known to happen. Okay. Guys, take care of yourselves, and as always, model on. you.